It's Snyderverse, it's not a plane, it's Superhero Slate. It's a modern podcast where we talk about everything that's great, like movies, TV, superheroes. It's Superhero Slate, oh yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Superhero Slate, the show where we talk about rundown. I can't even do it. Rundown the latest superhero entertainment news.
We love
Yeah.
TV, movies, superheroes. Should I just say content now?
Yeah, just
No,
we love everything.
I earnestly heard. I don't exactly remember the situation, but I heard somebody refer to it as like a kid, like a Gen Z. Like, we used to call it TVs and movies. Now they just called it content. Like, oh, I love that kind of content. It's like, no, that's supposed to be what a PR person says. You don't. That word was never meant to trickle down to like the normal people, and now it has, and I feel dirty.
Well, now you're listening to the Superhero Content Podcast.
Yes, exactly.
And my name is Chris Dillard.
And my name is Mike Royer.
And this week, we're revisiting the Shazam Family with Fury of the Gods. And that's what we just got off of. So I'm still a little wonky from that.
As you can tell, we're warmed up. I'm about 3/4 through this gigantic can of Mountain Dew, so I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I just cracked open a Jones Soda special release, so we're gonna have a good show. Charlie Cox is on set for Daredevil, Mike. I know we're excited to revisit him in the MCU rather than the Netflix CU. Tom Cruise really liked the Flash movie. I don't know what this news is and where it came from, but it was everywhere this weekend. And we'll talk about that and more.
Yeah, we are in it. We just finished our whole Shazam review, so make sure you're subscribed. Absolutely. Go check that out. Usually when we're doing like reviews of movies and stuff, we just kind of assume like the audience that's listening to our podcast also went out to the movies this weekend. But as we'll mention here shortly, I don't think a lot of people went to go see Shazam in theaters. Wink, wink, nod, nod, Chris.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. But
so if maybe our review of Shazam, our spoiler portion of it, maybe that's going to be your first, experience of the Shazam movie if you decide you don't want to watch it. So I hope we took you through it,
Yeah, absolutely.
in a narrative way.
yeah, exactly. It was more of a we'll talk about it later. Normally we do reviews. I think this is more like a conversation, really, for once. And
what is this, a podcast?
Yeah, really. And honestly, because I think I would say I don't have any expectations for it. Like not that that's bad. It's just like I don't know what to do with it. So let's talk about it and see what comes out. But sounds like you got a movie on the list here. You've been queuing up for a sequel. The fourth.
I finally convinced my wife to watch the John Wick movies with me, and it's been great. If you were to, divide the world into sexes, which is something that we're doing less nowadays, which I think is totally fine and okay. Nothing wrong with that. But typically, back in the day, you'd call John Wick, a guy movie, right? So maybe the wife might not want to watch it. But from deep down in my heart, I just feel like narratively, John Wick, the movies are just good. There is, of course, a lot of action in it, right? But I just think it's elevated above kind of like the normal kind of like action flick. So I convinced my wife to watch the first one. And she had a good time. She's a dog lover, right? And the whole movie, hinges on that first act dog dying. Yeah. So luckily, and I was getting worried.
Spoilers.
Spoilers. I was like, this movie's been out for a while, Chris.
I'm joking. They're on their fourth one. I think we all know what started this.
Yeah, but I was just like, oh man, I don't remember exactly visually what they show on screen. Am I about to traumatize my wife? So luckily, they take it like kind of right up to the edge, right? They show the audience just enough where you want John Wick to go kill everybody that was involved with this, and you'll celebrate him. But they don't show too much where you feel really bad on the inside and you're never going to recover. So I was like, okay, good. They really draw that line. But the best part about this, right, for me was like, John Wick is like an institution for us. He's been around for a while. He has 3 movies. He has a 4th movie coming around. I thought it was common knowledge that everyone knew John Wick was like an assassin. You may or may not know he was retired and he was being pulled in and out of it as a career, but I just thought it was common knowledge that he is a man with a set of skills. But the great thing is beginning of the movie, my wife did not know this. She knew the movie was full of a bunch of action, but she didn't know what his pedigree was. She was just like, oh, it's just this dude on screen that just lost his wife, and they just came and stole his car and killed his dog. So it was just fun experiencing that through her eyes. She was like looking over at me. She's like, who is this guy? Why are they so afraid of him? And I was like, I looked at her, I was like, you don't know. Oh my God, I thought you knew. So he's like, he's hitting the sledge. I love the best part about the movie is the montage, the very beginning where he's slamming the sledgehammer into the concrete, breaking it up, and you're just like, what is he digging up? Then it cuts back to the villains kind of like monologuing to his like dumbass son of like, do you know what you just did? And it's just like, and then it's revealed he is like the best assassin that's ever lived. He's the man that you send to kill the boogeyman. And I was like, ooh, I'm getting goosebumps like rewatching it. So this is my call to you. Find somebody that is totally oblivious to John Wick and just watch the first one with them. And like, you're going to be watching it at home, on the couch, try to convince them like, don't pick your phone up. I know it's starting a little slow, but they're building it. And then it just sinks its talons into you. And so we are on a journey. We're going to watch the other two. And then hopefully get into the theaters to watch the fourth one. And who knows, maybe we'll talk about it on the podcast. I don't know exactly. At the very least, we'll talk about it up here at the top of the show.
Yeah, so this is also two things. Number one, sad passing of Lance Reddick this weekend.
Oh, that happened the day after we watched this.
So he, for those who may not know, he's runs the hotel concierge, right? So he's a big staple of the John Wick universe for that. He was also supposed to star in the upcoming Ballerina spinoff, so very, very sad, tragic.
And if this Continental streaming show ever gets made, I would assume he would have been part of it.
Probably that too, yeah. I know the Ballerina one's like casting and like filming, so I at least know he was supposed to be part of that, but absolutely 100% they go down this. But the other thing is, you took an opportunity here, Mike, and you didn't chastise someone for not knowing something that
I was like, what? I was like, why did Chris just send me this comic? Yes. What did I do? What did I say?
There is a webcomic called XKCD, and one of them is called 10,000. And I always refer to this. I always try to keep this idea in mind that it says, I try not to make fun of people for admitting they don't know things, because for each thing everyone knows by the time they're adults, every day there are on average 10,000 people in the U.S. hearing about it for the first time. So literally, if I make fun of people, I train them not to tell me when they have those moments, so you miss out on the fun. So like literally, so if someone had never heard of John Wick being an assassin, instead of being like, oh my God, you don't know that, or oh my God, you haven't seen this movie, you say, oh man, that's great, let's go do this. You're one of today's lucky 10,000, like learning about it for the first time.
It's funny, I've also heard of this called as like the curse of knowledge. In a sense of like, when you learn something, you forget what it's like to not know it, and you lose empathy for the people that don't know it. This is just a good thing to know in life. You're learning a good thing that'll make you a better person right now on the Superhero Slate podcast.
Yes, and I want to tell you, Mike, you just triggered me, because I use the curse of knowledge at work once a day, every day, because of
like,
how we
you're like, settle down, Chris. These people just don't know any better.
They don't. We know how our company works, but everybody else doesn't know how our company works.
Well, and it's a little different in this scenario, in a sense of like, where I think a lot of people do know what John Wick is. Like, oh, it's a movie, and like, oh, it has that guy in it, and they might go the next level of going like, oh, it has Keanu Reeves in it, right? But like, I also just assumed, oh, you knew he was an assassin. I thought that was inherent knowledge. But when you rewatch the movie, they lead up to it in a fun way.
Yeah, exactly. I will also transition this real quick. By the last time my wife and I saw John Wick 3 in theaters together, and then we saw it again when they accidentally played it instead of Toy Story 4. So being one of the only two people in that theater who had known what the beginning of John Wick looked like, I was able to run to the theater and be like, you have children in there about to watch the beginning of John Wick 4 or 3, which is full of cussing and killing, so you need to hurry up and turn this off. Like,
luckily, that before you do have a little bit of time before it gets too bad.
Three gets in there pretty quick. But anyway, on that note, I have spent the past like 3 days playing a lot of Diablo 4 beta, Mike. I'm a Diablo game boy from way back in the early 2000s, one of the first PC games I ever had. The beta's this weekend and next weekend, so when they have a limited time release, you got to play it. So for those who What they've done about this game, Mike, if you've ever played a Diablo game or not, this is actually a static world map, like like when you go like Skyrim or something akin to that. Like you have like just a big world map, right? And like you uncover areas as the story progresses, rather than like moving through kind of like I would say like each act had a different map. So this is just one big map for all the acts, and I think that's a really great way to tell the story in this, because I think that one of the things I don't like about the earlier Diablo games, how they unveil the story. You have to read a lot of textbooks in the game, or like talk to a lot of people. And this, there's more cutscenes and ways to unveil that information that makes it more cinematic, I think. And for those who are like maybe on the edge of like, I like it, but can I get into it? Way easier to get into than any of the other ones I've come across. And I got to give them some credit for that, because it was really fun to kind of to go through that this weekend a little bit. Giving up some time on that to record the show. So both of these podcasts. So today. So for those,
yeah, I think also the remake of Resident Evil 4 was just released, like the highly polished like remake of it, which I hear is getting like A+ 100% reviews, and Resident Evil 4 is like the crown jewel of Resident Evil games, so they finally got around to remaking that. So like I haven't decided yet if I'm gonna be a person that downloads it and plays it and puts myself through the survival horror stresses of it, or I just like find a YouTuber I really like that plays it and I just watch them play it.
Yeah, I never played 4 myself. I've just watched a lot of people in person play it rather than like online. But like I'm not much of a survival like horror kind of thing. Like I need some more mindless stuff. And I'm like I remember playing Resident Evil 2, 5, and 6. I'm like, I don't like running out of bullets and like having to figure this stuff out very quickly. So I'm like, I don't really want to do that. Like I'm not playing games to stress myself out. So I agree with that entirely. But if you're into horror games, this is the weekend for that. Also, if you're into movies from previous horror directors, this is another weekend for that, with Shazam: Fury of the Gods, directed by David F. Sandberg. Mike, who was known for what? Was it Annabelle? Was it one of the Annabelle movies? Yeah,
Annabelle.
I did not know this. He's apparently Swedish. He's from Sweden. Like he's not American. He was born in Sweden. Grew up there. I mean, oh, that's great. Good for him.
Yeah, I brought it up a little bit in the review episode that we recorded, but he's a very online guy. So go follow him on like Twitter or his like YouTube channel, and you're gonna get a lot of cool behind the scenes stuff. Whether or not you enjoy his movies or not, I just love how transparent he is about the whole process.
And I think what people should be doing when they're having fun, right? It looks like he's having fun and having a good time, and now the stuff he works on definitely can feel that vibe on our end. But we were able to get a chance to go out and watch this this weekend. Some of us went out and watched it this weekend. We go ahead, before we get into our thoughts, let's go ahead and we always talk about the box office. Box office not so hot for this movie. It's,
yes.
30.5 million currently in the US, 35 million internationally. Set us down 40% over the first movie. And say what you will about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, it still made 135 domestic its opening weekend. So
just for a little bit of context, Cocaine Bear came in at 23 million, and that was like relatively a smaller film, right? Much less going into that. This was a superhero movie, right? So give you a little context there.
And honestly, not to fault the movie or use that context, this is one of the 3 byproducts of Warner Brothers essentially scrapping the DCEU at this point and not knowing what to do with their movies. So I would say the advertising in my world has been relatively light for this film if compared to how much Black Adam bullshit we had to get through to watch that movie. So I don't know what the marketing budget was for this, on top of that, but it's in theaters. It's making so many people are seeing it. I don't know if it'll have legs as next weekend. I believe, Mike, is John Wick 4, right?
John Wick's coming up. Dungeons and Dragons, which is surprisingly getting a good response, and then Mario not too far after
Mario's
that.
the week after that. Like literally,
it has competition.
Yeah, so it's this weekend or bust is what I'm kind of feeling. So, yeah, absolutely. But we watched this movie. We just came off a review episode. We are going to do spoiler free here. No spoilers for this movie. Which I would honestly say, Mike, at this point, were there many spoilers in this movie that would ruin the whole plot for you?
It's really just the very, very end and the post-credit scenes. And honestly, I feel like I can sum this up for both of us, Chris, by using your own words in our spoiler cast review, where you're going to have very similar opinions to however you felt about the first movie, and that tracked for both of us as well. Yep. I was positive on the first one. I'm positive on the second one. You were meh on the first one, and then I'll just review it for you, Chris. You were meh on the second one.
Just in the middle.
I had like a fun time. I love the cast. I love the interactions, the quips and stuff like that. But it's just kind of really hard to hold on to it, right? It's like that similar feeling of when you like a show on Netflix, like, oh God, they're not going to give me a second season, are they? They're going to cancel this right out from under my feet. So we go into depth about maybe the possible future of Shazam, the character and the franchise in the spoiler cast review. So I would say go listen to that.
Yeah, it'd probably be the best way. And like I said, and as Mike said, it's not maybe even a review, right? Like that's more of a conversation about how everything is.
Chat.
Yeah, what's everything doing? It's we lay it out on the line pretty early, and Shazam, Fury of the Gods. We are just how you feel about the first one is probably going to be how you feel about this one, and Godspeed to everybody.
God bless us all.
That's right. Let's jump into some other news here in the DC world, Mike. We're just going to keep rolling through this. We're going to linger on Shazam. But Blue Beetle, the first promo image of the character suited up, has landed online. Looks like a screenshot of something online, if I'm going to be completely honest. But this kind of reminds me of the Injustice look for Blue Beetle a little bit. Like, they might be reusing some of those models even.
Yeah, it does look like a video game screenshot, right? A little less exciting, too, because we do have those kind of like on-set shots from a telephoto lens, right, of the actor in the suit. So we already knew what it was going to look like. But, of course, just like all superhero movies, you have the practical suit, and then you have like the 3D render for like the special effects action scenes and stuff like that.
And what's crazy is we always cover this sort of kind of crazy concept art that I've never actually seen in real life, but like they are making these for something somewhere, right? Some other country, some other audience.
It's always a popcorn bucket, right? They're just slapping some sort of graphic on the side of a limited edition bucket.
Yeah, at your local theater chain that is not nationally owned and operated. So you can check that out. It seems to be pretty much like, I would say if Iron Man was more insectoid, right? Like an iron spider, if you will, over this dude. So nothing. I wouldn't say nothing to glean from it, but nothing to scoff at either. It looks like they're giving him a good suit overall. So we'll keep you guys posted as more Blue Beetle stuff comes out, because that is confirmed to be one of the movies for this year. In news that surprises nobody, Mike, Superman Legacy, right, is the name of the upcoming Superman movie. James Gunn has confirmed to hire himself to direct the Superman movie that he's also writing.
Yeah, this news was confusing for me because I kind of thought that was already announced, but I guess it was kind of one of those heavily rumored things that we talk about on the show. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I thought he was already doing this one. So a little less impactful for me this week.
This confirms one of two things. He can make the DCU whatever he wants to be, and he can keep putting his now wife in all the movies and TV shows. So it's fine. I think hopefully he does a good job, takes lessons from his time on the Suicide Squad and Guardians of the Galaxy and his other movies, and gives us a fun Superman movie that everybody, or at least most people, enjoy to watch. So we'll cross our fingers for that. Batman, Ben Affleck, he's out there talking, doing stuff. Does he have like a project coming up, Mike, that you know of?
He's him and Matt Damon are doing that biopic on the Air Jordan. So I believe that's kind of what this media blitz has been for. But I think it was an interview primarily I think it was the Hollywood Reporter.
Okay.
Which to me, it almost feels like there's a portion of it where they ask him about the the DC superhero kind of past and future, and it almost kind of felt like an exit interview, right? Yeah. Where he was just like, "All right, I'm kind of done with all of this stuff. So
I'm gonna give you the answers if you stop asking me the questions when we're talking.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you know. But he's obviously still cordial about it all because this is still a business. You're not gonna go full scorched earth. But long story short, but we'll get into it. You didn't have the best time.
Yeah. So really, he has said, Ben Affleck has confirmed that he is absolutely not directing anything in the DCU. It didn't seem to be maybe shots at the new DCU, people. Maybe it was the old DCEU people. I don't know. He didn't seem happy about it, what he says. When you say absolutely not, that's not something you're like, I'm going to leave the door open a little bit. This is like kind of like, I'm out. Like, nope, I don't want anything to do with DC ever again. With that, but he's also kind of confirmed that he's very little screen time in the Flash movie as well.
I think he kind of offhandedly says, "Oh, I'm only in it for like 5 minutes," but then also he says like it's my best performance as Batman I've ever done. Like I think he kind of saying something along the lines
he
of
finally came into the role a little bit.
Yeah, he finally found the character, and it's like, okay, so that's good for him. I would say there's two things to remember though. One big grain of salt is, at the end of the day, Ben Affleck is still a person, and as we all know, he has gone through a lot of personal trials and tribulations, and it's not like that stuff wasn't happening to him as well. Yeah. He does say in this he was like, I was like just sick and tired of doing this. I was on location. I wasn't around I just wanted to be like with my kids and stuff like that, and I couldn't do that. So it's just like, well, how much of this was the environment that he was filming in? The creators, whoever was in charge, and how much of it was just where he's at in his life too. Yeah, I think that's an important caveat to put out there.
And correct me if I'm wrong. He went to, was it alcohol rehab in the middle of all this?
I don't want to pretend that I know exactly what happened, but there was something going on.
He did. It was when he went to rehab for something, and then he came back out, and then, but definitely he was supposed to direct a Batman movie. Then he's like, no, I'm out. So guy's been through up and downs through this whole Batman scenario. So I can't really, I'm not faulting him for wanting to be like, nah, I'm kind of done with it. Like that's not a good thing.
And I read the transcript of the interview, and some of the stuff, what he's saying, it's not super entirely clear exactly where all of his ire is. He does bring up, quote unquote, the guy that they brought in to kind of reshoot the Justice League, and he didn't like that experience. But also he does kind of mention Snyder's version, and you kind of almost have to read in between the lines of what the words he's using, because obviously you see the Snyder fans out there going to the mat every single time somebody brings a quote up no, he's talking about when Joss Whedon came into the movie. Zack Snyder comes off totally clear, but there are moments in the article where he just kind of talks about the experience as a whole, all of these superhero movies, where he just was not having a great time. So it seems like things only got worse for him when Whedon came in to do things. So it's not like it made it better for him. So I've already passed plenty of judgment on the DC Universe and Zack Snyder throughout all of these podcasts. But I would say if you go and you look at and read this article, look at it from the point of view of Ben Affleck, because that's how he's ingesting it as well. But safe to say he is sick of this and he's not coming back.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think exactly. And, 5 minutes in the Flash kind of confirms, he's in the trailer for a little bit. He'll probably be there at the beginning, but by the end, he's not. I don't think he's going to even make it an Aquaman by the end of the year, Mike. I think he's out. I think they probably edited his stuff out. So, really not surprised. We had a good run with him. Batman's a hard role to play, right? A lot of pressure, a lot of people with their own ideas of what that is, and doesn't stop any time, whether you're the actor or director or whatever. So. Don't expect to see Ben Affleck after the Flash do any DC work for a while. Speaking of the Flash movie, though, this was the thing here. I've seen this. Tom Cruise, the guy who does his own stunts in his movies, because I think he's trying to kill himself and it's just not working out for him, has apparently seen the Flash movie and liked it so much he called the directors, cold called them to tell them that.
Yeah, and I think he also like requested to watch the movie earlier because Tom Cruise has that kind of way. He's like, "Can I just watch it?"
Well, because David Zaslav has said how much he liked the movie, and he was like, "Well, if you say you like it, can I get a copy to watch?" And that's what it spawned this whole thing. And I'm like, what a wild story to hit the internet this weekend. Like, like of all the things you could hear, like
it is also funny though because it's just kind of like, all right, Tom Cruise is not exactly the man with the best judgment out there in the world. If you see kind of like the people he surrounds himself with outside of Hollywood, right? But you can't argue he makes good movies.
Top Gun, like had it not been for Avatar, would have been the top movie last year, right? Or like, or was it? No, it was last year, right? Not 2 years ago. So like, guy knows how to make a movie, and his Mission Impossible movies are still going strong. Like, yeah, I like watching them and stuff. I just can't agree with them outside of work. But yeah, so I guess there's your one of your check boxes for the Flash at the end of the day. So
yeah, and I mean we all know James Gunn's opinion on the movie is totally biased since he directly benefits from the movie doing well, but he also says the movie's good. And I guess, going off our last bit of news, like Ben Affleck seems to like his performance in it as well. So, hey, things are, I mean, we got data points, Chris.
Yeah, we do. Things are trending up for the Flash. I've seen a lot of action figures and like the Funkos and stuff come out lately. And, the Bat, the old Bat ships, the Bat cars, whatever they're called. I can't even think of it. Batmobile for sure, but what's the ship called? The flying one?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Batwing?
Batwing, yeah. So, and it was simple. They're like, they look cool. They look like authentic 89 Batman stuff. So that's really fun to revisit that a little bit. So, everything seems to be coming up Flash, which is weird for us.
Agreed.
Speaking of weird stuff, Zack Snyder, he's still fucking out there pushing his Snyderverse.
Was this on Vero or Twitter?
This is a link to Twitter directly, where he has a post, #FullCircle, incoming transmission. In the end of April, it says, from Lord Darkseid, April 28th to 30th. People seem to be thinking that this is the Snyderverse video going to IMAX for a weekend. But could you stop with this for a little bit, I guess? Like,
I guess he does use the word Darkseid, which is heavily implying DC, but I thought this was just like viral marketing for that. Isn't he making a movie about the moon?
Yeah. It's Rebel Moon, not the moon, but it's Rebel Moon. But no, this is not his Netflix one. This is supposedly 100% his leading back into his DC work. And I do believe that there are rumors, and not just me, but like it is supposed to be an IMAX release for a weekend, April 28th to 30th. Because this is a window, and I think maybe is that like he might own that finally, maybe, I don't know. So
I mean, if he want, you know what, milk those Snyder fans as long as they're alive, milk them dry. I don't care. It doesn't make any difference to me. Go ahead, do it.
Yeah. Oh, here I found because I don't know what the hell a Vero is, Mike. How do I share from a Vero? Oh my god, I don't know what I'm doing.
I do not know.
Copy link. Here you go. Here is a post from Zack Snyder himself yesterday saying Man of Steel the 28th, BVS 29th, ZS JL, Zack Snyder Justice League the 30th. I'm ACCD, I don't know what that means. ACCD, then IMAX. So I don't know what this means.
It looks... Okay, happy Justice League. So it just looks like they're going to celebrate the anniversary of the Justice League by re-releasing it in theaters for a weekend, which is not out of the ordinary for literally any movie. That happens all of the time. But, in Zack Snyder's world, there could always be a secret meaning, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But this Vero post kind of lines up with those dates. So hopefully it's not anything extra. But maybe, James Gunn said he talked to Zack Snyder, right, when he took the job. Maybe this was like, hey, look, what can we do to get you to shut up for a little bit?
He's got to be an investor in Vero. There's no way any person keeps using it.
Yeah. So,
wow. Okay.
Anyway, so yeah, you can check that out. This little video clip on Twitter for the end of April. So if you really like to watch this black and white, is it going to be the black and white version, you think? I hope it's not the black and white version.
I don't care, Chris.
Yeah. Well, I'm just kind of trying to think here, like,
I know. I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to be hostile towards you. I'm being hostile towards the world.
This is a very irritable subject. But I'm like, do they put the black and white 4x3 version in there, or do they put the color? Because which one's going to piss off the most Zack Snyder fans? Like, we were supposed to see it in black and white. That's the way he wanted to. Woof. Anyway, let's jump into Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, because this one's a doozy as well. Disney is seeking legal recourse for someone who leaked the movie's subtitles / dialogue before the movie came out, like a month before it came out.
Yeah. So, yeah, not surprised that legal action is being taken, but I was saying to you earlier in the week in our text message thread, I'm curious exactly what information Reddit could theoretically hand over, because it's not hard to make a Reddit account. It's actually one of the easier accounts to make. You don't have to add in all of this identifying information. It's just like an email address and a password. And of course they have servers that, take your IP address for sure, but VPN could hide that, or any other thing. So I'm just more curious of what info does Reddit even have on this person. That's what I'm more curious about.
Yeah, so they subpoenaed both Reddit and Google because it was posted on a Google Doc before, and that was shared in a Reddit. So Reddit is actually, like, I would say even less than, right? I think like they're just
Google.
They're just covering their bases. Like, hey, it was here. This was like the most traffic, etc. But like one thing I would say, the movie. It's not the biggest movie at the box office. Wasn't the most welcome movie at the box office. I don't think the leaking did it, but it's surprising that they didn't do this when the dialogue leaked the week of and waited like till a month after it was out. Like, is that like legal recourse? I don't know what that deal is.
I think two things happen from this. First of all, this is just Disney flexing, right? We need to protect our intellectual property. We can't just let people think that they can just leak this and they won't be recourse. Yeah, we might not be able to find you at all, but we need people to know that we're not going to do nothing if you leak something. We're at least going to attempt. So, hey, at least if you're going to do it, make sure you cover your tracks. And, if there's that many loops that you have to go through to remain anonymous, maybe you just won't leak it, right? This is just too much of a hassle to cover my ass. I don't want to go to jail for something as dumb as this. I will not be viewed as a strong person in prison, right, for leaking a movie, right?
The hill you die on is Ant-Man and the Wasp. Like,
the anthill you die on.
Is that the one you want to go out on, or do you want to be the Avengers leaker? Which one?
Also, like, the detective in me goes like, okay, so maybe they're not necessarily looking for the identity from Google, but maybe they have a list, like a short list of suspects, right? And they want to get some more information, some telemetry, right, to narrow it down. So it's like, we know it could be this group of like 20 people. Now, they all live in different parts of the globe, right? So if we get an IP address from like this country, it could possibly be this person. And then we could approach them and like see if they crack. So that's kind of how my brain is like going, like from like an investigative point of view.
The amount of data Google and probably Reddit actually has on users, like including browsing history, time on different channels, login history, cookies that talk to each other, right? Google does advertising. It knows what you're talking about out loud, let alone where you've been and visited. So
it's called an air-gapped computer, people.
Yeah.
That's what you need. You gotta go to Best Buy, buy the cheapest computer, all cash. Yeah. I suppose if you're really like nervous, you gotta like obscure your face in case you're on a security camera. Yeah, it's actually really crazy. It gets me like stressed out thinking about like, oh God, if I ever had to do this, I'd be so nervous the whole time.
I've seen enough Jason Bourne movies. I feel confident I can handle this. Back when you just like get a burner phone from someone on the street and throw it away. But either way, the point of this, comes down to is it's enough to shut down a subreddit, Marvel Studios Spoilers, which was its own subreddit, so it didn't leak into anything else.
What kind of person wants to be in that subreddit? Like, wait for the movie to come out, nerds.
Pump your brakes. A lot of our news comes from there. And it's not just like full spoilers, like there are like, leaks and rumors and everything. A lot of our stuff did come from there. So I can't fault them. It's not just like, hey, here's everything that you don't want to know ahead of time. But
that's what I thought what was primarily for. It's like, we're just trying to spoil the movie.
It sounds like it, but the regular Marvel Studios Reddit doesn't let you even do anything like theories
Possible
or anything
rumors.
like that. Yeah, like they shut it down. So like this was a safe home to even put, that timeline we had last week. That's where it came from. Like a lot of it came from there because people would source their actual information there rather than just throwing stuff up and like, I saw this.
Okay, all right.
So,
I will pump my brakes a little bit. I thought it was just people trying to ruin movies.
It sounds bad, but like this whole thing has just, put a real wet rag on everything, and everything's like, everyone's like, oh, whatever. But like, it's just funny. And I would also say the last thing that I didn't put in here that I did make a mental note of, it was actually a international subtitle leak that someone put through a Google translator. So they're going to have even more data on whoever put this in the translator at the end of the day.
Gotcha.
So I'm like, ooh, that's going to be fun. Like, what country is responsible? Like, who did this?
And that actually could be important in a way of just like, oh, we have a leak in a vendor somewhere, so we need to like shift vendors. We need to stop using them because we can't trust them. So there could be a more practicality to it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's just weird. Ant-Man and the Wasp, being in the news a month later for something completely different was just like mind blowing. So
I mean, I'm not trying to be like a goody two shoes over here, people. You shouldn't always follow like the rules and big corporations. I don't like them either. But like, why do you feel compelled to leak it? Now, I will say, if like somebody has like a really shitty boss and this was just like, I'm gonna get back at them, like, okay, at least there's a little bit more motivation behind it. But like, are they just looking for clout? Like,
so I think it's funny because this is the opposite of what you were talking about last week with the Scooby-Doo and Crypto 2 movie where that was leaked. Like, of course they have a bad boss over there, but like, it's kind of the same thing. Like, there is an audience for this. We are not that audience, but there is an audience for this, and you want to build some rapport in the community. But I think the negative side to this is when you will affect your own livelihood, because Disney, the mouse is not a forgiving creature over here. And if your whole company that you work for is shut down because you leak something, you've put everyone else's jobs on the line. So that is, I think, where I would say this is, a warning to, I wouldn't say warning to those people. I'm not gonna tell these people what to do, but like, hey, that kind of sucks. Like, don't risk everyone else's stuff for your small gain with a company this large. But yeah, bummers, man. Oh well. At the end of the day, we saw it, and I didn't know about it. So actually, that was the fun part for me, not knowing that this existed online. So we avoided it spectacularly. Let's jump into Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I sent you this photo earlier this week. I think this is a hella cool photo from Empire. It's got Spider-Man 2099 fighting some variant of the Vulture. I don't know what variant it is or what world it comes from because we know this was universe hopping. But I love the design on this Vulture in terms of like how sketched over like the final version, right? Like of the colors and everything. You can see the pencil lines, over his wings, over his feathers. It seems to be maybe like, is this like a Vulture noir maybe character in terms of like his color palette and how he's built, or I don't know. What do you think of this? I mean, you're more
it is kind of hard to tell, right? It's like, is this a character that had like color stripped from it, or is it like a sketch? It almost looks like it's built from like wood and like cardboard, like almost like a craft or something. It looks cool though. It feels I like the mechanics of it, right? You can kind of see like these ropes coming off of it so he can like possibly pull these wings. He's got the classic kind of Vulture nose that you will never see in an MCU live action movie, you know?
Yeah.
But it looks rad. It's cool.
Yep, and it's got your bright neon 2099 Spider-Man red here, right? And it's dark blue. He's got the sketch color over his legs, so I really feel like this is going to be, again, a beautiful animation where it's like looks like every frame was hand animated in a computer. Love the background colors as well, right? The neon greens, the blues and pink hues. I'm really excited to see this movie in motion. And I'm tired of them giving us these single shots because I want to see the whole thing move in action. That's where I think it's going to come alive. But we have to wait till this summer to do that. And in typical fashion, I think with this, the directors, one of them was like, yeah, this is our Empire Strikes Back. I'm like, everyone says that about their second movie. Everyone wants their sequel to be the Empire Strikes Back. Okay.
Also, like, I know The Empire Strikes Back is a good movie. I'm not taking anything away from it right now. I'm not about to like lay down this hot take, right? But like The Empire Strikes Back, I wouldn't necessarily say has the most satisfying ending in a way, because my entire life the movies have always existed, so I've been able to just immediately watch the third movie, right? But I feel like if I was in the movie theater, right, and I was just like, oh, that's how it ends, okay, it's like a cliffhanger, it's kind of satisfying because they're looking off in the distance, like kind of like hopeful but pensive, but like that's what I always think about in Empire Strike Back, is like a story that's not finished yet. So like that's kind of what I get when people compare it to it.
And at the time that's relative, right? Like it was new, it was fresh, it was like, oh my god, this is the biggest sci-fi thing ever, like, and now we get confirmation of a sequel before the internet was a thing, right? Like yeah, we know they're coming back and there's gonna be more, and like, oh, this is really exciting, but like we don't have that luxury anymore. We know everything's happening. We know all the release dates, when they move, when they're set in stone. I want it to be a big thing, a big complete story arc for them. But like, yeah, you don't need everything. Doesn't need to be The Empire Strikes Back. You could make your own call on that. Maybe is this your Godfather 2? Huh? Are you gonna say that instead? maybe that's a better one. Because we got a Godfather 3 and nobody really liked it, but maybe that's what you want to go with. But. Yeah, this in our show notes, that link to that Vulture variant. Take a look at it, and I think it's fantastic. Daredevil Born Again is out filming. I think that's really cool. They're doing some outside stuff. We know Charlie Cox is coming back as Matt Murdock for 18 episodes. He is walking around with another actress, Nikki M. James. I don't know who she plays, but he's got his red glasses on, Mike, obviously, and his walking stick in hand, looking like a lawyer, right?
He is still blind, confirmed in this universe, if we didn't know that already.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, what I love about this is it feels like a continuation of the Netflix show, right, that we all enjoyed, while still being fresh and new, but we've only seen him in, like, I guess part of a She-Hulk episode and a couple seconds in Spider-Man. So I'm just excited to have him back in here. He did a really good Daredevil / Matt Murdock, right? Like, very, very excited. And knowing that this show is 18 episodes is just mind-blowing that they went ahead and committed to that to get essentially a whole story probably out of the way.
Yeah, we got a lot to chew on when that comes out, which might not necessarily be a good thing. Like, I would say the 13 episodes on Netflix had its filler episodes, so hopefully we don't get a lot of that.
This is 3 months, 4 months of a year. Like, that's hard for me to like wrap my head around. Like, right, we're gonna be watching 4 months of Daredevil. So yeah, check out those set photos in our show notes or on Twitter. This one's really cool. X-Men 97, right? The continuation of the animated show from the 90s. It's coming to Disney Plus. A synopsis was revealed this weekend on this. I think it's the 60th X-Men anniversary live stream on Marvel, and the synopsis says, Mike, and I quote, "Storm and Wolverine try to continue the X-Men. Magneto comes in and wants to step up for Charles Xavier. Sinister comes in to try to end the X-Men once and for all." Sounds pretty awesome.
Storm and Wolverine try to continue. I mean, I love the 90s X-Men, right? It's part of our childhood, but I've never considered myself like a completionist of it, right? So I don't really know how it ends or how are they going to like literally pick up where they left off and just kind of consider this like the next season?
Absolutely. Yep. And which is weird because the show actually started, I think, in 92 and like ended in 97. So this is like continuing like after that, like where it technically ended in 97. So that, to me, that's interesting, but it was 4 or 5 seasons. Yeah. I'm trying to pull up here just to make sure I've got my information right on this, but like, yeah, at the end of it, Charles Xavier, I think he's dead or he goes to space, one of the two. Obviously.
What a dichotomy there. Well, he's not on Earth either way.
Yeah, he is not around at the end of the episodes. I'm gonna pull it up here and go down because it's like you mentioned, it's been a while since I've watched this, right? Like since I've seen this. So yep. Let's see here. I'm looking at the final Magneto. Oh, Xavier's dying. There we go. That's what we find out at the end episode. So yep, and Xavier leaves with Lilandra and her ship to the Shi'ar homeworld, Mike. So it ends with him literally dying and going off-world. I was right on both accounts. So, but Mr. Sinister was only introduced in the episode before this in the cartoon. He wasn't around for the show, And despite all of the literal X-Men movies and Wolverine movies, like winking and nodding at him and never really doing it.
Always trying to get Sinister off the ground.
They were like, they're like, wink, 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 wink. He's gonna be in here. It's great to have confirmation that he is the villain, right? There is a X-Men villain that we know and we've not had a lot of, in the TV shows and movie world, to come in and be that villain here at the end of this. So I'm kind of excited to see some of this in action. I think it's fun to talk about it, but I want to hear it and see it, right? Like, theory's great, but execution's better, and that's where I'm at. Is there anything you want to get out of this? What would make you go back and rewatch the original 75 episodes?
Man, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I feel like what it's got to be is just really good public reception, right? Mm-hmm. Where I just see people talking about it online and saying, wow, these stories are really kind of popping off. So probably the best way to do that is to just have like story arcs, right? I feel like the 90s superhero cartoons, like Justice League, Superman, X-Men, they were kind of pioneers of that in the cartoon space, right? Yeah. Of making overarching stories. But now we're in 2023. That is the norm. So I'm looking for some dense stories that continue. That would, that's got to happen, right?
I would love a lot. For number one, I love the designs of the costumes, right, of the show, like the Jim Lee era X-Men designs. Like those are like what I think of when I think of X-Men. But I would love to see them move into some more modern stories, right? Like, there's currently in the X-Men world, there's Krakoa, which is an island, which the island is actually a mutant itself, where X-Men only mutants can come unless they're invited and live there, and that's interesting to me. Like, I would like to see some more modern stories rather than them, because it was in the 90s, right? They were just doing 70s and 80s stories all over again, like just retelling the comic books in animated form. I would love for them to pick up some of these newer ones. Now, I don't need them to change the costumes or the look of the characters. Let's just see what they do with it. But I would really like to see them do that and use that multi-arc storytelling, right, that you're saying, because I remember, do you remember like when Morph disappeared in like the first episode or whatever, and they didn't bring him back for like ever? So yeah, I definitely remember watching those. I want to go watch this. I might go watch season 1. It's only 13 episodes.
You're like, let's wrap up this podcast. I gotta go watch this now.
I gotta go watch some X-Men. Speaking of Marvel animated, on the What If side, on their listings for What If, it now says coming soon rather than listing like a season in a year, right? Like it used to be. I think it's like maybe summer 23 or something like that. Now it just says coming soon. But they also did this for Loki. So I'm really leaning into that time window, that calendar we looked at last year, being right more than anything, because they're rearranging this stuff.
Like we said, we got data points on this episode. That's what we need.
My favorite thing was someone completely unrelated to that timeline posting, hey, they're going to be filming a Sentry one-shot this summer. I'm like, yes, please, please let it be true. So, yeah, we'll keep you guys posted for that. I want to give a shout-out to Superfan Jim for telling me 3 minutes after 2 o'clock that Amazon was doing free screenings, early screenings for Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves at 2 o'clock today. I think it was 2 o'clock his time, which was been like 1 o'clock. Like, it was already too late for me to go watch this. But apparently they are so like positive on this movie. They're letting give Amazon the opportunity to let people see it like weeks early. Like, that is great news.
It is. Right. It's so weird. The last time we talked about this movie, Chris, we watched a trailer that had like another classic rock song in it, and I was just so worried that this was just going to be footage created purely to make music videos. Yep. But yeah, we're starting to see these good. I mean, this could be a new franchise in the making. It's like watching something be born, almost, in a way, right? And it's like, it is based on IP, right? Dungeons and Dragons is a known property that is owned by a toy company,
Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast, I think. I think Wizards owns, maybe. I don't remember which one of them. Mattel? Yeah. No.
I swear I saw like a toy company logo, at least. I don't know. Either way, it's owned IP, right? But it is like, Dungeons and Dragons is such like a broad concept. You can really make anything out of it, so it feels fresh and new in a way. So yeah, I'm crossing my fingers for it. Like, I don't want to necessarily say it's an underdog, right? Because it's a big box office movie that has Hugh Grant and Chris Pine in it, and Michelle Rodriguez. So it's got a draw. But I never thought maybe I would be going to the theater to watch this, but this is good news.
Yeah. So I just pulled it up. So I actually was able to get tickets even earlier than their normal screening through they're like doing a special fan presentation at theaters. Remember when those were a thing before COVID? So they're doing one for this. I'm like, okay, I'll go on a Wednesday to watch this. Absolutely great. Currently sitting at 90% on Rotten Tomatoes with 41 reviews, Mike.
Wow, that's good.
That is one of the highest movies I've seen in a while. I think John Wick might be the only one around, a little higher actually. So we are in for a good couple weeks, Mike. Here's what I'm thinking. But I grew up, played Dungeons and Dragons. I played video games based on Dungeons and Dragons. It looks fun. It looks, fantasy. We're gonna have a good time. I think you're right. I think it might be Hasbro. What I have heard behind the scenes, and this is, not in our notes because I wasn't talking about it, that this movie will make or break that company retaining the rights to Dungeons and Dragons.
Ooh, high stakes. I love it.
Because if this bombs completely, they view it as an unviable thing. Even though the books and stuff are selling, there was you remember a couple of months ago we talked about the whole huge scandal of them that, but this movie is also make or break for that company as well. So I was like, ooh, I'm really hoping for good things because I'm like, I want it to be successful so they can make more of these, right? Like, it doesn't have to be with these same people. Dungeons and Dragons, there's a whole thing, like, you're in the world and your adventures running around. Someone also mentioned it would be fun to do one of these a la Jumanji, like where it's a movie set in there, but then you find out later that it's people playing the characters, like at the table.
Oh, maybe it's like a Lego movie situation.
Yeah.
You pull out like, oh, it was Will Ferrell was there the whole time at playing the bard.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's some fun ways to do this, and it is Wizards of the Coast, by the way. I'm looking this up. Who is a subsidiary of Hasbro. So I pulled
there. It is.
Yep.
There it is.
But I'm really excited to watch this. I'm glad to hear that. Like, I want them to be successful. I want to see more in this. I'd rather there are ways to to tell stories in this world without using these characters over and over again.
Yeah. We like Chris Pine too.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's one of the Hollywood Chris's.
Exactly. He is my 5th favorite Chris. I had to do a list the other day.
Do you include yourself in that?
I do.
List?
I'm 3rd. So it's Chris,
Okay.
Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, me, Chris Pratt, then Chris Pine. So I know where I am on the list. It's fine. But anyway, so so early access screenings are available. Check your local theaters if you want to go see this early, and get your hands on some D&D merch if you want to. All right, Mike made me add this in here. No, I'm kidding. The Last of Us. I forgot this wrapped up last weekend because it has been a long week. It's been a week. We've done a lot of things. It has been my birthday. It's been Diablo. It's been everything under the sun. So Last of Us, the first season wrapped up last weekend on Sunday. So you can watch the whole thing now if you're a binger on HBO Max. So you can check that out.
Yeah, we're going to be talking spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, just turn the podcast off now or listen to us. I don't care.
Yeah, the game has been out for how long? Like, it's almost the same story. So you're not going to be missing a whole lot. If you are, I have played the second game. I'm not going to spoil any story past what was in the first season of the show. So don't worry about that either. Yeah, absolutely. So, Last of Us, Mike. You've played the games. You're more of a fan. You're the hype boy for it, if you will, of the show. What do you think? How do you feel at the end of this?
Remind me, Chris, before I go into this. I know you're familiar with the story in the world, but you never played the games, right?
No, absolutely not. I actually own the Last of Us remastered on PS5. But I didn't get into it. I didn't get to start it because the story in this one and what I've heard and what I can attest to. Everyone's attested to me. You get involved in the story, right? And then it's also one of those survival games that we talked about earlier in the show where I'm just gonna be stressed out playing it the whole time. and I'm not into that kind of video game right now.
And one more clarification. I know you're a very online person, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if you told me you had kind of gone into like a Wikipedia page and maybe looked into more story yourself. Do you have any inclination of what happens after the season finale or anything like that?
I know everything and all things without playing the game. So yes, I know.
Okay.
There was a lot of discourse over the second one, right? When it kind of came out, due to leaks, by the way. So avoid those.
Oh
leakers.
Yeah, I forgot that was leaked.
So when that came out, I'm like, I don't know what's happening with all these news articles. I need to go do my research. So I went back and did the first one, and then when the second one came out, did my research on that too.
Okay, that's helpful. So when it comes to me, obviously, I think the emotional stakes of the game were absolutely nailed. Right. I think they perfectly encapsulated what it's like for somebody like Joel trying to move past the grief of his daughter and maybe accept a new person into his life as his like reason for living. Then also Ellie just kind of struggling what it's like to have people to rely on now and how to trust people. And, also kind of dealing with her own demons. So from the emotional perspective, absolutely nailed it in my opinion, and I loved it. But I did feel at times throughout the season just a little underwhelmed when it came to like spectacle, right? And I don't know maybe if you'll agree with me or not, since you haven't played the games, but I just viscerally remember feelings coming back up when I'm watching these scenes on the show and then kind of falling back into playing the game, right? And I remember like these intense moments of trying to avoid like clickers or bloaters or trying to get through like a sewer system. Like, for example, in the very last episode when they're trying to make it like, I may have the timeline off a little bit from the game, but this is close enough. When they're trying to make it into the city, right, to get to that hospital in the last episode. In the video game, you have to traverse this kind of like tunnel/sewer. I think it's like a tunnel that's caved off, and it's kind of like the last moment in the game where you are bombarded with like clickers, zombies, whatever you want to call them, right? And so it's really intense. Like you have to sneak through a lot of like buses, and you have like no ammo left, right? All of like these big baddies are at the very, very end. And then when you finally make it to the other end of the tunnel and you see the light, I think that's when you get kidnapped, right? So we don't get that moment of tension at all in this. All of the tension just comes from the human elements. And I feel a little vindicated from a point of view of Naughty Dog Studios, the official Twitter account tweeted out to the audience and said, "Do you think our show has enough zombies in it? We earnestly, sincerely want to know if you think we need to be putting more in there, or if you think the show is fine the way it is." And I feel like I've never seen like an official source reach out to an audience while the show has been going on. Well, and the consensus seems to be, yes, we want more, but we still like the show. And that's kind of the sentiment I have.
And that's been great that Neil Druckmann, the creator behind the games, has also been very instrumental in the creation of the show, right? Like that helps to have that parity. So when there are changes in the show, you're like, the official source made these changes for the show. It's not like somebody else came in and like, well, we didn't like it, so we changed it.
Yeah. And who knows? It's hard to say now because in hindsight, this show seems like a knockout of the park, idea, right? You have Pedro Pascal, now probably one of the biggest actors on the planet right now. The show is amazing. Everybody loves it. The creators behind it, it's going great. But at its initial conception at HBO, right, I could see them maybe trying to play it a little safe, right? Like, hey, adapting video games don't always go great, right? Your second game came out and it got really divisive, like story-wise, maybe they wanted to put more into it, but like everything, there's a budget, right? Nobody expected the show to be as big as it was, and I think that's safe to say. So I'm just hoping when season 2 rolls around, which they have officially said the second game will span more than one season, because the second game's very big.
So let me go ahead and say here, because I've not played the games, the lack of zombies in this, I know, right, what's in the games doesn't bother me, because it comes to show me it's not the zombies that are the worst part of the apocalypse, right? It's people. People are the worst part of the apocalypse.
That's always how it is, right?
Yep.
We mentioned The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
We mentioned that in our Shazam review because we were just kind of talking about Atlanta filming, right?
Yeah.
Same thing of The Walking Dead, right? It's always comes down to the people.
Yeah, the people are the worst part of this. And that's a great part of the story. But I will tell you what I really struggle with on this first season, Mike, is how fast this show goes. Like, there are time jumps, and I'm, like, trying to do the math. I'm like, how fast or how long does it take to do these things, right? Travel from one end of the country to the other, essentially. So a lot of times on foot, sometimes on horse, sometimes by car, like not very quickly. And they do cut out the travel stuff, but like I was very much struggling with the pacing of how fast things go, because I wish they would have slowed down sometimes and did more of this, like Ellie and Joel, because the last of it happened so quickly, that I'm like, I get, where he's coming from, and what he does, I know a lot more, but like it didn't feel as quite earned because they didn't spend enough downtime together.
You're hitting the nail on the head for sure, because they do similar time jumps in the game, but since you're spending so much intimate time with the characters, exploring, looking through abandoned houses, fighting off these harrowing creatures, right? Once you do kind of do the time jump where they kind of skip the middle of the country, which is what happens in the show as well, exactly what you said, it feels more earned. Like, oh, Joel and Ellie are equipped to deal with whatever they run into, so now I'm not so surprised when we're kind of jumping into the snowy mountains all of a sudden. Mm-hmm. I understand how they could have got there, where it's a little more of a stretch in the show to feel that.
And the game, I'm sure, is, I would say 10 to 20 hours, right, to beat the game. Frankly, we have 9 hours here. The first episode, Ellie is not in it. The episode with Frank and, is it Bill and Frank? They're not. She's not in it. There is I guess an episode or two where Joel isn't in it because he's incapacitated in a basement for most of that stuff. So like we didn't like. It may be 9 hours of television, but we really only got maybe 4 total hours with them being together. Right, sharing that screen time and building off each other. We learn them, but not them together. And I really, if I could wish this was 2 seasons rather instead, or double the episode order to help build this relationship between them on their journey through the country.
Yeah, I'm just hoping, like I said, it's just season 1 growing pains, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure they've learned a lot here. The audience trusts them now. Now HBO has all of the confidence in the
studio
world.
trusts them more than anything.
Yeah, it outperformed House of Dragon, which outperforms the original Game of Thrones on some metrics. So yeah, this is their crown jewel. They are going to be taking very, very good care of this moving forward. So yeah, I'm very hopeful moving forward. But yeah, it is an interesting challenge, right? How do you capture the sense of dread and tension that I cannot shake from playing the game and translate it into the show? Very, very hard to do. And I think, Chris, you got the answer right. We just need more time. Yeah. We have to build it up. We have to connect more with this world. I want more clickers and bloaters, man. Like, I get it that, humans intellectually will be more of a threat always in any apocalyptic scenario, but like, I want to be entertained by my television show. Give me the monsters. They're fun to watch. Like, never underestimate the power of just a spectacle and fun, even though it does always ladder up to story. But what a crazy 9 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever for the show. Like, I was not expecting Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey to just like explode in popularity as much. All of the headlines from the show, I mean, success all around. So that's been kind of exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really put the pressure back on, I believe it's Naughty Dog or whatever company's making the Last of Us multiplayer game, right? That was announced a while ago, where you're supposed to be like in the city as a multiplayer, and like I'm sure it's I don't want to say it's like a storm, but like I'm sure it's like a survival style multiplayer game, right?
Yeah,
obviously.
Probably something
like PvE, and I'm like, well, that would get me interested as well, right? To really have that release with a tie-in with the game. Like, okay, I can probably dive into these stories gameplay wise. I will say, one of the biggest the biggest complaint I have with the show, Mike, and tell me if I'm this is sticking with me and I can't shake it, is where Joel is in the basement, right, of the house after being stabbed, and he's like incapacitated and he's just like looking around, like he's not talking, he's not moving. She jabs him with penicillin, and then like 2 minutes later, he can get up and just take on a full man, and I'm like, this happened really fast. I get how health packs work in video games, but I'm like.
I was also going to complain about this, but I was like, okay, we're kind of wrapping up. Maybe I'll just leave it be. But no, this is a pet peeve of mine when it came from the game, because, like I said, I'm not like a super fan, but I have played the game, so I'm sure somebody has a better timetable. But if I remember correctly, in the game, Joel is recovering for like a while. It's not like a couple of days. If I remember right, it might even be months where like Ellie is out there learning how to survive on her own. I think she hunts multiple times. She's bringing back food. I don't remember exactly where she gets the medicine from, or if that happens first or second, but it's like it's a much longer time arc. So it makes sense that like Joel slowly recovers. And there's like this cool set piece in the game where like you've been playing Ellie for a while now, and then you shift back to Joel, which is really invigorating, because you've always been Joel for the whole game prior. So you kind of feel like, oh, you're finally back in like your normal car seat now, and now you're gonna go save Ellie because you're finally feeling better. And then you have all of these people hunting you in that neighborhood. So they did make a lot of changes there. But no, you are totally right, Chris. The time dilation there is you have the audience has to kind of really let that go to move it forward. I will say in the game it was handled a lot better.
Okay, cool. Because then the last thing someone asked me, they were like, they're coming up on this green encampment. Like, is this somewhere we've ever been? I'm like, this is where his brother was, but it was snowy when we last left here. So I'm like, I don't know how long it's been for them to actually travel back. Like, obviously months have passed, right? Like, snow doesn't melt in the mountains overnight, or even like, slowly or quickly. So it was just interesting to see. Like you mentioned, time dilation in this whole show was interesting to mentally pay attention to as we worked through it. But I'm glad it just wasn't me, because I was just like, man, like I don't know. It wasn't
just you.
I'm not trying to find things to complain about. But I'm like, this is just it's racking my head at night. I'm like, how's this timeline work? So it works out. And then the other thing that we didn't talk about is obviously there's a huge change to Bill and Frank's dynamic in the game from the show, right? In the show, it was essentially what we would call a filler episode, a well-done filler episode, but nothing actually was in the current time frame of the story. But like, in that you actually have to you fight them, or you have to do something else with them in the actual game, right?
So there, like I said before, there's going to be more experts out there, but if I remember right, Frank in the video game has already died. And you're getting a lot of the backstory just through dialogue or objects that you find around. And there's like a big set piece where like you get hog tied up accidentally, and then there's zombies coming. So you're like shooting at them upside down, and Ellie's trying to save you. And, you're trying to traverse through his town, and he's got booby traps all over the place that you have to like sneak around. So yeah, they really kind of took a whole like gameplay level away from you for this backstory, which was absolutely beautiful for sure. So definitely a different experience.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, I was like, it was a big uproar online. I was like, oh, I don't really care. Like, I didn't play the games. It's not affecting me, but I just want to make sure, like, it's not the same as the game is, because otherwise that wouldn't be playable section, right? That's for story. So, cool. All right, well, Mike, unless you got something else, that's the show for the week.
No, yeah, I think we'll give it another week or two before maybe we check back in on The Mandalorian, but we're watching that as well, so stay tuned and we'll be here.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to touch up on The Mandalorian after Star Wars Celebration, just to kind of see, like, because that's in, like, April, so, like, a couple weeks. So I think that'd be interesting to come back after that and see, like, what did they announce? What's the Mandalorian story been telling us, and see if that ties in together, so... yeah. But
unless Jar Jar comes back. If Jar Jar somehow appears in The Mandalorian, I'm not waiting. We're talking about it.
Well, okay, that's a different story. But also, if he comes back in The Mandalorian, I'm canceling our show. This is like the one kill switch button.
No, you're right, Chris. We are canceling the show and pivoting to an entire Jar Jar themed podcast.
Yeah, that's right.
Good idea, Chris.
The Jar Jar content podcast, as our name should suggest.
The kids want Jar Jar.
Yep. So, people know what you're up to, what you're doing. Where can they find you, bud?
Well, they can find me at Mike Royer Design on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and you can read my webcomics at pickledcomics.com.
And you want to know where I'm at? Is that what you're waiting for? Gonna ask me where I am?
I suppose that is what I'm supposed to say.
Yeah, I know.
At this point in time.
I'm like, is he done?
I was looking at my can of Mountain Dew, to be honest, and I was like, wow, I finished this whole thing, and I was like, oh wait, Chris, where can people find you? I got this can of Mountain Dew from Chris, so I was thinking about you in a subtle way because this was a gift from you.
It's been 2.5 hours of recording shows. It's time to go. But you can find me on Twitter, Valdan, VALDAN, or Instagram, Valdan87. If people know more about the show, where they can listen to that Shazam review even, or get ready for upcoming other reviews, where can they get all this good stuff at?
Yes, I won't screw this up. You can visit superheroslate.com. That's the best place to find all the avenues we host our show and to get our awesome kick-ass show notes if you want to see everything we talked about this week. Also, links to our Shazam podcast. If you're not already subscribed, we got that up there as well. You can like us on Apple Podcast, YouTube, Spotify, and wherever else you love to listen to fine podcasts. I think I just said to like us on Apple Podcast. You might be able to do that, but I actually think you should subscribe to us.
You after you said I'm not going to screw this up, you jinxed yourself. So
like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, merch, superheroslate.com/store. We love you. We love our super fans. Be a super fan by sharing the show. We'll be here every week, folks. Okay, I'm done. I got through it as fast as I could.
That's right. And in 2 weeks, I will be at C2E2. So if anyone's there, let me know, and we will catch you guys next week.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe.